Okay. Should be. So I believe the first one is Shelley. Okay. Yeah, Shelley's online. Can you confirm for me, Shelley, that you're listening?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, good. So the FFPs for the house and the garage, they're not the same. Garage should be 0.5 below house. Do I find out of the spot elevation the same way as exercise 6? Well, depending on which spot elevation you're talking about. We can look at the big picture first, and then look into what specific questions you have for which spots. Are they all the same, the numbers? This where they should all be placed. The placement of the spots look pretty good. Not all of them are marked, but you're not missing a lot. Then, yeah, we'll check this well center line. And you go over how to do the rest of the contours with the side slope requirements. So if we look at your elevation calculations, I'm not exactly sure which ones. So for instance, you're referring to this spot or that spot or this spot. So that's the first question. Suppose we have a garage FFE that works. You have about 134 over here, and then 129.5. Well, first thing, let's not try to make water turn 90 degrees. So what we do is we do the center line as 2. We'll smooth the line that I just drew. Move the HPS. You can move the HPS closer to the building because you want this corner to drain out. You want to avoid for this area to be too flat, right? So they'll pull HPS a little bit closer to your building would be helpful to create a 2% positive drainage toward your HPS. As we mentioned in the last review on Tuesday, for this exercise, your LPS could be in this area because once water gets to this area, it basically drains away from your building, so you don't have to drag your center line all the way to the side of the building. So your LPS could be in this area. So that's that. And let's talk about the driveway here. So it's not very clear which spot that you calculated, but essentially what you need to calculate is the spot over here. So you would extend the boundary of the walkway so that it intersects with the driveway with your road, and then we calculate that spot and this spot. Okay, and your measurements of your H is all the way through from the entrance of the garage to the end point where the boundary of the driveway intersect with the road. At the same time, you need to mark out where a 15 feet line is because there is a requirement for this to be below 5, and then for this to be below 10%. Okay, so if your garage FFE is 134.5, that could be within the range of 10%. I just don't know for sure because I don't have measurements of your driveway. I can't help do a quick estimation because of that. So if I elaborate on the process here, I would estimate the spot. That spot, I could say this is about 129.4, for instance. And if your driveway is about 60 feet, the first would be 45 feet, and then here would be 15 feet. So if we're going at a 10%, multiplied by 45, we get 4.5 foot above. And then we'll add the 15 feet multiplied by 5%, we get about 0.75. So if the lowest point of your driveway is about that, you would add 4.5, then you would add 0.75. So that will be 133.9 add 75. So you would have 134.65. That's so basically that means if your driveway is about the length, it's not significantly shorter than what I have here. If your garage is 134.5, that's a reasonable elevation. Does that help?
Yes.
Yes. So okay, good. If you can measure all the dimensions that I just mentioned and verify that this is not too far away from the example that I showed you, you could use garage FFE equal to 134.5 as a starting point. And then next you would specify a HPS somewhere in this location, and repeat the process with your LPS in this location. It needs to be a little bit away from your building because I'm not exactly sure you'll be able to fit in all the contours in the between, okay? Because you have a 134 contour, you have 3, you have 2, and then 2 needs to come up here. So at least you would have 4, 3, 2, no, 2 to 3 contours in the middle. And the side slope needs to be below 20%, 5 to 1. I don't think you have enough space over here. Okay, so the center line most likely needs to be away from, I'm not sure even what I marked here would be enough because I don't have the measurements. I would not try to figure out the side slope before I have my center line. Okay, because the center line is a starting point which will give you, for instance, which contour is the contour that you connect the first. So if the 133 is the first contour, for instance, you would have 133 over here, somewhere over here, wrapping around and then forming the other part of the 133 somewhere here. And then, I would have a 134 closed contour somewhere over here. You have the very, very drafty draft. Then okay, I need to fit in 2 contours in between. Then okay, those distances needs to be 10 foot, right? At least 10 foot, or in this case, 7.5 foot between my building boundary to my 133 contour. And in that case, you would know, okay, now I start to move these drafts over to leave enough spacing. But before this, it's hard for you to visualize how many contours in between, and so what's the spacing that is appropriate. So I would still work out the center line first, draft your contour so that I know exactly which number goes where. You need to know where they are. And then I measure out or I offset to get the right spacing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So those are about the driveway, the spots, the center line. We are pretty good in terms of where to mark these spots. but I wouldn't worry too much about calculating them at this point, okay? In order to calculate your driveway, you know that I need to calculate that spot. By extending the line, I need to calculate this spot, not for the purpose of calculation, but the final grading plan, because these are where slopes and materials start to change. Those are the spots that need spot elevations for the driveway. Okay, so at least 2 would need to be marked on the plan. 6 needs to be calculated. These 2 needs to be calculated in order to calculate this. Okay, the places you marked, the entrance is correct. Where you enter the garage needs to be marked. All the corners needs to be marked, so those are correct. That is not necessary because this one, this one is not necessary unless you're designing a sloped porch. Okay, so if your porch itself has a slope, then you would need all these spots. If your porch is a flat pad, with no slope, you just need to say porch FFE, okay? And these are the driveway spots, and there are straight lines and curved lines. Wherever they intersect, you would need a spot, okay? So 8 spots for the walkway are necessary. You don't need spot elevations for the wood deck, because when you grade the surface, the construction of the wood pad is not dependent on, or no, you would grade the surface according to, well, how should I, the wood deck is an add-on feature. Okay, it's an elevated feature. It could just be placed on on the turf at the back of the house. So the wooden deck, you would not need all these ground elevations. Okay, then that one's necessary, so that's good. The other ones, they are marked correctly. Not necessary to mark the ground elevation for the wooden deck. Yeah, that's where all the spots needs to be. I think I went through all the questions, but let me double check. Yeah. Do you have additional questions, Shelley?
No, that made sense. Thank you.
Okay, good. I'll move forward then. So next, I think I have the Jane. Okay, you here or online? Okay, great. What do I do if my spot elevations are close together and end up piling on top of each other in? So for sure, your spots, they are too small at this point, okay? The size here is good. This size is good, and it's the easiest to basically just align it the same direction that you have for the house FFE. So the spots of the corner will be looking like that. Well, you should first basically just place all the calculated spots, where you closest to the spots that you're marking. And then you start moving around the other labels. Now, things like driveway, walk, and porch, and wood deck, those labels can all be moved. Okay, you have absolutely the freedom to move it around to fit your text. Okay, so if you don't have enough space in a particular area, you could use leader lines, just as what we have here for walk. Now, if you have too many spots over here, you could choose to have a line, leader line out, and say both of these two or one of these two you could line it up somewhere here for the first one, and the other one being in a separate location. Okay, and you definitely would spend some time, you know, throughout the process to try to make it work for your labels. It's a little time consuming, actually. It's quite meticulous trying to make everything work, especially when we get to more complicated plan where you have hundreds or even thousands of spot elevations. How do I find the spots for the driveway? HPS and LPS, and then we'll look at the center line. Center line is supposed to be 15 feet away from the house. Well, very likely it needs to be. Do my slopes look correct? So let's zoom in. So I'm not exactly sure how you got to your garage, FFE equal to 135.00. It's possible you picked a number and say, let's try to see if it works, right? In your case, it might work, but it's not certain. It's not certain it will work. Now, for folks that have a base map with a pretty short driveway, it might not work. So here, you can choose to calculate backwards, or you can choose to calculate, in this direction from these two spots and see what's the maximum garage FFE that you can have. Okay, so it's the same as Shelley's. I would say let's drop the garage to be 134.5. What you can do is you could calculate extend this line to the driveway, to the drive, extend that line to the drive. You then measure what's the distance between the 130. You can see the 130 is from this. That's 130. That's 129, right? So from this line to that line, you can measure this H. By that H, you'll be able to know the slope, right? You can use the H, the blue arrow, the length of that to calculate the slope. Once you have the slope of the road, you could measure this distance from that point, from this point to that point. With that smaller h, you'll be able to calculate the vertical difference from this spot and 130. So that might lead you to now the spot here being about 129.9, for instance, roughly. And here for this spot, I'm basically estimating visually. So I would say it's probably 139.3 based on where this spot is in relation to the 129 tick mark and the 130 tick mark. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. With these two numbers, if you specified your garage FFE to be 134.5, you would mark out where your 15 feet is, right? And you would say, okay, this is my 5%. The spot here, because you need to drive in, cannot make your car jump, right? So this is flush with the garage FFE. meaning those two spots at the entrance of the garage will be 134.5. Then you would use 15 feet and 5% to calculate these two spots. So that's basically 134.5 minus 0.75, right? So that gives you 133.75. That's the spot over here. Once you have 133.75 and 129.9, you would again measure the distance from here to that spot. You get your slope. You get your slope there, the same, you get the slope over here. And you'll find out that this slope is bigger than that slope because this spot is lower than that spot, right? So now you need to check if this slope is below 10%. If that is the case, that means your garage FFE works at this point, okay? Once you have the garage FFE, you verify that it works, you would find out where that spot would be, for instance, if your HPS is in this location. So you could end your swell over here. You could end your swell over there. You could measure this distance and then calculate your where your HPS, what's your HPS roughly is. If we say this is 30 feet or 25 feet, then your HPS is at about 134. Okay. And then using 134 and 131.5, 134, and here is around 130, using these numbers to calculate your slope. Okay, so that's how you would start from this direction, from the garage, using a specified FFE to verify the slope of the driveway works. And then if it works, we go to HPS. Okay. So that is this portion. Let me zoom in to look at your slopes and everything. Now, when you get a 1.8% slope for the center line, that's your clue that is not below, no, above 2 or equal to 2. So that means something needs to change. Okay. It's not that difficult to make the adjustment, because what you can see, what you did was I pushed down my corner to be 1 foot below my garage FFE. Now, if we're still using your old garage FFE, for these spots, you don't have to lower it down. So what we did was, you know, that's too gentle. If we want to raise it, right, we can raise my HPS. And it's easy to raise my HPS because I push these spots down where I don't have to push it down, right? So these spots, the garage corner can be the same as your garage FFE, meaning that they can be 133.5 or 134.5, meaning that your HPS doesn't need to be as low as 133.50, okay? And that's a way for you to raise your HPS, so your slope would be above 2. With the adjustment that I just suggested, you know, garage FFE being 134.50, moving your HPS over here so that it's around 134, I do not expect you to continue to have this problem now of a too gentle a center line, okay? So the first thing for you to do is to recalculate the driveway, and then testing out HPS elevations. Now revise the location of your center line, and then we can talk about next steps. Does that make sense? Okay, good. All right, let's move forward. Vendor. I think you're online. Yes, you're online. Can you unmute to let me know?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. All right. Should my HPS and centerline move closer to the house and garage, or are they located at a reasonable distance? You should move your HPS closer to the house for the reason that looks like you don't have enough slope there. Okay, so that corner is okay, that corner is okay, but you can see that I don't have enough vertical difference between 134 and 133.7. In order for this to be above 2%, that needs to be at 15 feet. But apparently this is longer than 15. Does that make sense? So you would move them over to somewhere here, and then very likely you still have to lower that down because that still seems to be longer than 15. You would need to measure that to know roughly how long that is. Okay. What are we supposed to do with the wooden deck? For now, you can ignore it. Okay. For now, you can ignore it. It doesn't really affect your grading. Wooden deck can be built after a house is built, after the ground has been graded. The way the wooden deck is built doesn't depend on what the ground elevation look like. Okay. There is not a wrong ground grading plan that would make it impossible for the wooden deck to be built. Okay. So let's check these calculations. You have a 5%. You have, well, the only thing that I would again double check is, did I start from here? If your slope here is 10%, that means that slope is still over 10% because the spot here is lower than that spot there. Does that make sense? That's where you need to double check to see if your garage FFE is in fact correct. Sandra, do you have any more questions about this part? The first thing for you to do is actually to check the spots, the driveway spots at the lower end, and whether or not the slope here would exceed 10%.
So there'll be a slope for the top of the driveway and the bottom of the driveway?
Yes, because the whole surface, you know, you're correct that that spot is the same as this spot, but that is higher than this one.
Okay.
So you have, you know, constantly changing slopes, you know, in this plane. So the whole, this plan is a walked plane, and the slope here is the lowest, and the slope there is the highest. So in order for the whole driveway to stay below 10%, what you need to make sure is not the center. So it's not this slope, not that one that should be below 10. It should be this slope that's below 10.
Okay.
Okay. So you might need to recalculate that spot and specify for this to be 10% and see what you get here. And then use the 15 feet, 5% to calculate this spot. And then you will see, okay, whether or not the 134.5 is too high. My hunch is that this is a bit high because your driveway seems pretty short, but I could be wrong. And that's for you to recalculate and verify. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
If we have that, I think if we have a slightly above 134 garage FFE and we keep this the same as the garage FFE, we move the HPS somewhere over here, I don't think that would significantly affect your centerline slope over here. I think you should still be able to rate this for it to be 2%. I think you should, it would work out. It wouldn't be too hard to make it above 2. For this one, for this one, this doesn't look like it's going to have any problems. You could end right here. Now, if you want to go that way, I don't think, well, let's see if I want to connect that one over here. It might be a little difficult to go 131, come back. Yeah, it might be that the 131. Well, what I'm trying to say is that you can keep your LPS in this matter, in this location for now, but when you rough your contours in, you might find the shape of the center line or the length of the center line needs to be changed a little bit for your existing and proposed contour to merge together smoothly and to connect back to each other smoothly. Okay, but without your draft contours, it's hard to say that if you should make that minor adjustment or not at this point. Other things that I noticed here would be the spots needs to be marked outside. Okay, move the numbers outside to outside of a building, because then people won't confuse it for it to be your FFE. They know that this is the ground elevation. Okay. Otherwise, I think once you had a chance to calculate that slope, you should be able to move forward smoothly. Yeah. Any other questions you have?
So just going back to like the wooden deck. So it mentioned, I think the center line had to be 15 feet away from like the house and the garage. So should we just ignore the deck then and do 15 feet from the house? So the center line's kind of closer to the wooden deck.
That's okay. Yes. Well, your center line on this side, it's okay. Is this portion that is too far away?
Okay.
That is okay. And the reason is that I need to drain that corner. And this area in the middle right now, it's very flat. So by pulling the HPS closer to your building, now the distance becomes that, right? And then you only need to, well, once you raise this corner, measure out that one, you'll find out maybe your HPS will be close to the value that you currently have. Meaning that your centerline slope would be, because it's shortened a tad, so your centerline slope will be a bit above what you have for now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, these not need to be moved, just this portion. Okay, I'm gonna move forward then. Yeah, they mush all of these together, so I'm not even sure where. Ella, okay, good. Right, so printing had some issues. How do I find the spots from here? Would that be my next step? Fall in between. Yeah, it can fall a bit far in between. Let's see. So 129.7, 130.1, 7% the whole way. Yes. Yeah, that's fine. Right. The whole thing being about 7, that you could even back calculate so that you have 5, and then the rest could be steeper than 7. So you would back calculate, if I use 5 here, what that is, and then what this is and what that is, and calculate whether or not this will exceed 10%, which I don't expect that to exceed 10%, because overall you have 7. So So you could back calculate instead of starting over. So there is something that looks off to me. I think, no, this wouldn't be up to 129.7 because you can see that is closer to 129 than to 130. Very likely this one is 129.45 instead of 7. Does that make sense? Because if I mark the tick marks over here, so that's a shorter distance than to the 130 tick mark. Yeah, so estimation is a little off here. Yeah, okay. So you have your FFP, garage FFP being 134, and then you have 5%, so HPS could be 133, that's okay. And then we have 131.8, you get about 2%. It's probably borderline. It's probably borderline just enough slope. Yeah, so you don't have to move it around just yet. You could draft out your contours and see how things go, and then discover whether my side slope. So if this is 133, you would have 3 and 2. So you should still be able to stay below 20% on the side there. Then for this one, we have 2%. Yeah, I would say the next step for you is to rough out the contours and see where things get tight, where it makes to change the shape of the center line so that when you are connecting proposed and existing, you don't have to do strange turnaround of the lines so that they can be relatively smoothly connected together. Okay. Yeah. One more thing to check later on is to see once you have your contour, to see the slope to the closest contour. Now it could become something like this. And then what you find out is, in order to drain this, my water needs to flow the closest or the shortest way is actually along the building. That's actually something you want to avoid. Does that make sense? So if the spot here, the quickest way for water to drain from here is along the building, it could increase the water flow along the wall, basically meaning more likelihood to damage the wall, right? So your goal is actually for it to drain that way, which means it could be beneficial for you to turn your HPS into this direction. Now, closer would be okay too, closer to where you were, but you would want to encourage water to flow out of that corner instead of along the wall out of the corner. Yeah, okay. All right. Next, this seems to be different orientation. Yeah, so for the final submission, this one needs to be turned counterclockwise for 90 degrees. So I think this is Paige. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Rotate it. Yes, here. Okay, we have our HPS. We have the LPS can be shifted over here. I would say that's getting too close to the building. Okay, that's at this scale what I can see, and then I'll zoom in. Calculations here, 129 is 33, 43. These looks great. Okay, those look great. And then we have 10%, we have 2%. 10% gets us to 133.90, 2%, we'll add 2. Okay, so garage will be that one. The corner will be this, great. And this seems to be quite steep over here, but I'm not sure what the slope here is. So maybe once we have the measurement here, I would know what this HPS, whether that HPS would be too high or low. Well, major, no, it's about whether it's too low. I think what you could do, we're definitely dropping below 2 at this point. So, which means you would raise that one, which I don't think would be hard, because right now you have 1.5 between the corner and that. 1.5 means that actually 75 foot. 75 foot. So you definitely are not 75 foot long there. This might be 133.65, or even if it's 50 feet, then you minus a foot, right? So it could be 133.15, then that will solve your centerline slope problem. So that's that. We look at the slope over here. I don't expect your slope to be out of range in this direction, because we're dropping below 131. Okay, so the key issue here, Paige, is that we need to move the center line to more in that location, and then our HPS being in this direction, we would measure the distance over here. If this is 50 feet, I think this is probably about 40. This is likely 40 feet. And then we would use the 134.15 to minus, so that will give you that as your HPS. Then you would not have a slope problem. Your slope should not be below 2% anymore. All these calculations work, so you don't have to change those. Raise this for this to be 0.5 above your FFE of the garage. That will make your life a lot easier. The reason being if they are the same, because this line is the same as the garage FFE, meaning that the whole line here would be at the same elevation of your house, and you don't have enough positive drainage or elevation differences to prevent water from entering a house. And so raise your house to be 0.5 above would be much more helpful here. Yeah, make those 2 changes. You're ready to move forward with your drafting your contours. Okay? Yeah. Okay, let's see. Levi, are you here? Yeah, I know. Yeah, see you online. Can you confirm that you're listening? Okay.
Me, right?
Okay.
See how it.
All right.
For mine, do you want me to share my screen since the measurements didn't show up at all?
Sure. You can share screen.
Right, can you see it?
Yeah.
All right. So my question was just on the PDF was about these contours. Like, do I have to do a certain calculation, or I kind of just guessed with these ones if those would work or not?
Yeah. So for now, we don't have the swell pattern yet. Okay. Your swell needs to wrap around the building. The contour right now, they look like when we are grading a terrace, when we are doing the cut and fill balanced solution, but the contours needs to wrap around the building. We can take a look at your garage FFE and trial FFE to to see whether your HPS seemed too high to me. So your trial FFE, the highest is the 135.12. That's for your house, right?
No, I didn't know they were different. This would technically be for the garage.
Okay.
The trials are for the garage.
So can you walk me through if you calculated the 15 feet 5% away from the building?
15%? 15%? 15 feet.
15 feet 5%. So 15 feet away, that needs to be 5%. Or were you using the whole driveway to multiply 10% to get the vertical difference?
I was using the whole driveway.
Okay. So in that case, your trial FFE for the garage needs to be, you need to change the numbers, and using 2 or 5 most likely will give you a elevation too low. So you can test 10% directly, or you can pick an 8% or something. But what we are trying to do here, let me draw out the cross section so it might be easier to see. This is our garage, right? And then we're having a gently sloped area right in front of the garage. That's the portion where it stays about 4 or 5%. And then for the rest of the driveway, we can go up to 10%, right? So you basically need to do two calculations. For this H, you need to use 10%. And for the 15 feet, you need to use 5%. So we would calculate that spot first, and 10% up until that point, we will get the spot over here. Then we'll calculate 15 feet, 5% to get to your garage FFE. So
okay.
Yeah, likely will be below 135. Okay.
All right.
Will be below 135. Once you have your 130, your garage FFE, then you can specify your HPS over there somewhere. Over here somewhere. And then we start roughing the contours in. But if we want to create a V-shaped, if we say, no, just use your HPS equal to 134.1 as an example. The first contour that's shaping our swale is 134, right? Let's see, let me try to find where 4 is. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 is over here. So it would be something like this, and then I would need to wrap it around my building because my building it's above 134, and then I come over here, and then going around, and then that's my 134 going back over here. Does that make sense? So that's your 134.
Okay.
Roughly. It needs to go around the building because your building FFE is above 134, and between the high elevation and the 130 over here, you have to have a 34 contour. And then your 3 would go, something like this, then wrap around again. Again, I'm not being accurate in terms of where exactly they are. I'm just roughing it in and connect it back to your 130, right? Yeah, it might be this instead. And then I would have, well, depending on where my LPS is, I'll decide where my 31 is and where my 30 is. My 30 eventually have to connect somewhere here, right? That's my 30. Going around. And for a port, again, it depends on whether or not your LPS your LPS probably won't drop below. So this is likely just modifying the curved contour to a straight contour and then connect back to 130 somewhere over here. But no, the key thing is to understand that the contour pattern for the first few contours that shape your swale.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's your center line somewhere here.
All right.
All right. Yeah, start with the driveway. Start with the driveway, and then move according to driveway, garage FFE, HPS, LPS, centerline slope, draft contours, then adjust the spacing between the contours. That's basically the process of working out the solution.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. We have Brady. You're here. That one. Brady, can you unmute?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. With the slope work, point too far. Yeah, HPS seems too low there because your high area is in this area. So I would move your high point as well to the place closer to this location. Your LPS needs to be dropped down a little because otherwise it's hard for you to have enough vertical difference. Drop down. Well, this is 32. So if you have your LPS at this location, it will be above 132. Okay, so 132.3 or 4 instead of 131 because you interpolate, right? So for here, your LPS can stop here, which is slightly above 130. Okay, so you have most likely your 3% would not work. The reason being your driveway is also very short. Okay, the driveway being very short, if it's a 3% slope, your garage would not be high enough to create your swale. So if I were to draw a cross section, it's that one. This is my house. And that's my driveway. If it's really short and it's pretty shallow, your the house FFE would not be very high, but then I would need to push it down to create my HPS, right? Meaning that this one is not high. That would mean that my swale, if I draw the swale at the back in the background, it would be very gentle. I don't have enough vertical difference to create the swale. If instead I make my driveway steep, so if I make my driveway very steep, exaggerating, okay? If this is steep, then my HPS can be high, right? My HPS is at the back of the building. This is my driveway. In this case, I would be able to have enough distance. Again, I'm drawing the swale centerline in the background. Now I would have enough vertical differences to create enough slope for my swale. Does that make sense? So conceptually, these are connected that way. So when you look at your driveway, it's pretty short. So you should use the 10% of the steepest slope to test out your solutions. Okay?
Okay.
You can kind of see, yeah, you can kind of see. Now, if you use that to calculate 3%, you get an FFE of 130, but your HPS needs to be even lower than your FFE, meaning that my HPS here would be 129. And now you're now getting negative slope. Does that make sense? the HPS is not even higher than the LPS. It's even negative slope. So you have to raise the FFE over here using a 10% instead. Again, like the other reviews, you would calculate for that to be 5%, and then for the whole thing here to be 10%. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, start with the driveway using the maximum slope, and then find out your garage. For you, this base map is actually more challenging with a short driveway. So you might need to go through a few iterations to try to get a solution that is working. Okay. Yeah, the longer driveways, they're easier. They're easier because, you know, but more likely the spot elevations or the FFEs that you tested for the garage would work. Okay. You try to spend some time in class today and try to come back for another review so that you would have something that's workable, getting into next week. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. And I think Matthew is the next. You in the room? Oh, hey. Hey. Overall, pretty good. The 10% thing is to be verified. But if you have 134.75, very likely it's going to work. So I want to point out something that are not matching with each other, okay? If you not sure what's the elevation here is actually the critical ones. You know, it seems that the key about these elevations is that they are so close to each other. So you cannot have, for instance, the pink be 0.5 above 134.75. The reason being, otherwise at the corner, you'll have a sudden drop, like one step drop, right? So these two elevations, they would be very close to each other, or they are the same. That's because, garage, you drive right in. So garage is built differently from a wooden house. The garage floor is usually a concrete pad, right? And the foot of the garage would be protected from water with again, a concrete structure. So when you drive in, overall the garage, if we drive in our garage, we put our groceries down. Usually you remember that you take one more step or even more steps to get into a house, right? So overall, the garage structure is below your house. They would not be at the same elevation. So what I would recommend that you do is to say, if my FFE is 135.5, you can back calculate and see if your driveway stays below 10. That's probably the easiest way in order for you to not change or only change a few of the spot elevations that you have on the plan right now, instead of say, oh, I start over by calculating this one and get to a different FFE, right? I think you can start with 135.5. It's likely still a little too high. It's likely too high. Okay. If it's too high, okay, I take it back, because when I look at the 135.50, I still sense that it's too high. So safer way, it's still for you to go back to the spot and calculate 10%, calculate 5%, get a sense of what this is. This is possibly 134.55 or 75 to the maximum. When you have that one, the garage FFE would be exactly the same as that spot as you drive in, right? And then you add 0.5 to your garage FFE to get to your house FFE, right? Your HPS, likely it's still going to work, because if this is 134, you have a 133.50, it's still going to be possibly be below 5%, above 2. Above 2 for sure. No, there's a likelihood that this is going to work. The HPS would still work. And then I would suggest that you drag your LPS below a little bit, because otherwise your last contour of 132 would go something like this. And your 131 would still need to be moved, which means your LPS is not really where grading stopped, which would disqualify your LPS as the LPS, right? Your LPS is where your grading should stop. So it will be more reasonable for your LPS to be in this location that I just marked. That potentially would make sure that your LPS is where it returns to the original grade without any modified or proposed contour being in conflict with that. That is okay. That is okay, because you can see as I was drafting out the contours, all these the 132 needs to be dragged around the building, right? A big portion of this contour will need to be changed. Yeah, so that's not necessarily a clue or a signal that you have to move it up. No, the final decisions of where these proposed contours should be, you would best judge it once you have a full draft. Now, once you have a full draft, then you will take a look and see, okay, the shape of the centerline slope doesn't make it easier to connect back to the original contour, or the side slope become too steep. And at that time, your decision to move things around will be more informed. Yeah. Okay. So the step for you would be calculate the driveway, and then move the LPS. In fact, the whole thing, you can drag the whole thing and move it down. The reason being, I am shooting water directly to my tree there. So if you drag the whole thing and drag the whole line and move it in this direction, so that it becomes something like this. It's likely going to work better. Yeah. Okay. Not too close here, though. Try to stay about 15 feet away, then you should be good. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think we covered all the questions. We're good? Okay. We have Emily. Okay, you're online. Can you unmute, please?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. The tick marks don't align with my path. Yeah, that one, after this, you can go talk to Jonathan. Our cat room is open. I don't want my HP to be higher than my garage, but then, okay, we can take a look. How should I elevate my FFP to make my slope more than 2? All right, let's zoom in. Yeah, here the FFP is too low. I think you probably use 5% for the calculation for the driveway. your HP have to be even higher than this one. What you could adjust is you can move your LP below. So your LP becomes 131.50. That way you raise your vertical difference. You only slightly lengthen your center line, which should still be helping you to increase the slope over here. So if that is enough for you to raise the slope above 2%, that means your HP being 133.50 is likely a good starting point. And if that is the case, we can actually back calculate to find out where your FFE is and what the slope here is. Okay, so there is really no single direction that is correct to calculate this thing. You know, based on what you have here, an easier way might be, let's try to move this to 131.50. If the centerline slope goes above 2, I keep this, and then I back calculate for this to be a 2% slope. And then I get this one, which is the same as my FFE, which I would use is the same as these two spots, which then I would use to calculate, okay, for this to be 5%, what the slope here would be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. I'll just try around with different numbers.
Right, that seems an easier way for what you have here. Let me go down and take a look at the other portion. Close that annotation. So for this portion, that's not a problem. Okay, your LP can be here. It could end sooner, but this is not a incorrect start. So you could still start with this. If it turns out, no, it's hard to connect the bottom contours, then we'll change the LP location for it to be somewhere else. But that's, at this point, it hasn't become a problem yet. So once we have all these, okay, that doesn't hold right anymore. That doesn't hold right anymore. You have to calculate based on this. And then after that, okay, so once you have a chance to test all that, you can start drafting out your contours. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. All right. Anything else you want to go through?
I don't think so. Do you think that just by taking a look at like the driveway spot elevations that they seem correct, or if there's something that is like drastically obviously wrong?
Those seem correct. Yeah, they seem very reasonable based on the location in between 129 and 130. And that's a 3.5 difference. Yeah, that's not enough vertical difference. So you gotta increase the slope along this line to make it work.
Okay.
These all of these will change after you figure out the driveway slope.
Okay.
The center line seems reasonable start. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, move forward then. You're welcome. Okay, we have Jaden. Are you in the room? Okay. Okay, the swale does not connect back to existing contour that way because, you know, the whole building the house thing changed everything underneath there, right? So you wouldn't necessarily connect back over here. So you have these, which seem a good start, but then you need to look at the whole thing now. It is the construction of the house basically raised the whole area up, right? So all these contours to go around the house to connect to back to existing ones. Yeah, we can take a look. So overall, we designed for 6.5% slope. We have 130.5 here. I'm not sure where the 131.1 here comes. So that seems off. That seems off. Those two spots. That needs to be determined by contour here. So it's 30 and the 29 is over here. That is below 130 and this is above 130. So that one would be about 130.3 and here is probably 129.6. And then you would use the slope to calculate the FFE. Your HPS right now is higher than your FFE, which is, you know, water will drain to your building. So that's not correct. What you could do is what I just suggested to Emily, right? If you, well, it seems like you still have some room to lower this. You still have some room to lower this because your slope is 3.5%. Let me see what's the slope for the next swell here. Yeah, you still have room. Okay. From what I see, your HPS could be a little too high, but it could still work. Okay. I think your HPS is likely going to work. So we could take the path that I suggested to Emily and say, let's back calculate, okay? Use that HPS, use the 2% slope to calculate your garage FFE, okay? Once you have a garage FFE, you have these. You do need to calculate that one. That one is 130.3 in estimation. And this one is 129.7 by estimation. You use the 15 feet and 5% and then back calculate the slope here. I don't think it will exceed 10%. So likely, no, you only need to go through this once and mark out what the slope here is. Okay, you have your HPS, you have your LPS, you basically already have the tick marks. Let me show you if I have 133 over here, what your contour would look like. It is correct that you will start over here, but then you would have your 133 wrap around your building, depending on where your FFE is. If your FFE is above 134, which it seems likely it's going to be 134, above 134, then we have one more contour to fit in between. So that's your 133, and then come back to wherever 133, you need to calculate where 133 would hit the driveway, and then come back to form this portion of the V. So that's, where's the V for 133? Okay, that seems to be lower even. So you need to come back and then go back there. Does that make sense? Because this is your 133. It could. Well, this is not the final one. This is the drafting one, right? We still have to, I would expect your FFE to be above 134, which means I still have a 134 contour that I need to fit in between, right? And at this time, I would need to be mindful about the slope over here, the slope over here, slope there, slope there, the slope there, right? If it exceeds the slope requirements, I need to pull these contours out more, right? But not yet, not yet. We want to try to get a full sense of the contours first, then we start to make adjustments. So the next one is my 32. Oh. My 32, I would do the same thing. I would wrap it around, keep in mind the correct spacing, and then I would calculate that one. And then 122, that's my 122, and going back to my 122 there, right? In the side depends on the side, right? If it's this area, it needs to stay below 5 because you have a back door requirement there. On the side, here is 20%. That's 20%. But on the front is determined by your driveway slope, right? So the driveway, the first 5% needs to be met, and then whatever the slope here you calculated it is. Once you have all these spots, you would interpolate to find the tick marks on the driveway to find out which contour hits where, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's your 131, and then 132, and at this point, the LPS would be somewhere over here. Then you start adjusting the 131 by connecting through this line, right? You'll find out where 131 is. And then 131, still here, you still have a swell line. And then I'm going back up here and then go up there. And that's my 130. 130 would not have any swell line anymore. It starts from here. So you kind of have to, we're a little out of our property line there. So that means very likely I'll need to move that one. So I'll keep here, connect to my 10. And I need to keep in mind the distance over there so that I don't let the 10 fall out of my property line. So those are the areas that you would discover as not working, as too tight, and then I'll move things. And then you decide, okay, I need to move which line to which direction to make room, those kinds of things. That makes sense? Okay, cool. So for you, first thing, back calculate your driveway, and then draft out your contour. Depending on your FFE, decide which contours needs to be the first one around your building, and then draft it out, and then evaluate where things are not correct, and then make adjustments. Okay. You're welcome. All right. Eric. Eric here? Okay. Okay, yes, the text seems too small. The contour label does not need the feet sign, okay? You can just mark 120, 132, 131. The spot elevations are small. Your HPS looks okay to me. I know you started connecting contours on this side, not necessarily on that side, so it's hard for you to know where things, okay, 132. You will only have one 132, and the 132 right now it's not in the right location, okay? We need to find out where 132, it's probably somewhere here, the tick mark. We're missing one tick mark. That's why the 132 doesn't look correct yet. So 132 start to form that swale and then connect it back to the second. It's likely going to be like this, the 132. Right now, your 132 is too close to your 133. If this is your 132, that's too close to a 133. It's almost 20%. You kind of see that? So this line. Let me zoom out a little so that you can see the whole thing. So you have your HPS over here. You have your 32. 31. Your 32, it's missing a tick mark over here. That's why the 32, it should have been the first contour on the north side for the swale, and it's not yet. So your 32 needs to be doing this and then connect back to your 32 somewhere over here. I think, oh, my bad, wrong connection. 32 comes over here. And the first contour should be 133. You don't have your 133 yet, okay? 33 needs to be around your building. That's your 33. Then it becomes your 32. All right, let me erase that. Then you start with your 31 over here. And then you need to look for where 31 is. 31 is over here. All right, and then 30. 30 needs to come back to here. That's your 30. These you have to measure to know where they are. Okay, based on your driveway slope, you need to measure the exact location for all these different lines to hit. It's getting a little tight somewhere here because my 129 would need to be connected, right? Can you see 129 would be a problem? So where the orange hits, the orange probably could be moved closer to the building depending on your calculations. 29, 28 doesn't need to be moved. It doesn't seem it's necessary. Okay, so that is roughly how the connection of the contours should look like. We still haven't checked the driveway slope yet, but I want to give you a sense of what your, if you use 132.8595 as your HPS, what you would expect the contours to look like. And the other thing is, if you have a 134.25, oh, that's okay, because your corner are below 134, so you don't have a 134 contour. All right, let me clear. And I need to zoom in to look at your driveway calculations. Okay, so that should be 129.40, okay? It looks like it's an error in typing. 122.35. Well, you could not have a spot here that is above your garage FFE. So that one should be the same as your garage FFE. If that's the case, let's see, that's the distance, 4.5. So it's 5, I should be okay. Yeah, if your garage FFE is 133.45, HPS 132.95, looks like the distance here, it's about 50 feet or 25 feet. Oh yeah, 25 feet. So that's okay. But remember to revise this one. That doesn't look right. Okay, and this is, you can make this just 0.5 above that one. And then these will be the same as that. Yeah, the differences between these are a little strange. 0.8 difference between the house and your garage, and then a 0.3 difference between the corner here and there. It doesn't seem like the changes are corresponding to, for instance, a step or anything, so we don't necessarily have to do that. Um, that's good. Okay, that is okay. Those are good. 25, 75, 125. Yeah, this could be the same as that. You can see that this 75 and the 45 are so close together, and they don't have to have differences. Or is this porch above? It's probably above the ground. So the ground elevation is not 133.75. There's some things going on here with differences that are not well justified. So if you want to keep your garage at 33.45, make house 0.5 above, then things will be a lot easier. Okay. Otherwise, let me zoom out again. Ah, come on. That's okay. Yeah, I think your solution I think these are okay. That needs to be changed. These spots needs to be revised. That spot needs to be revised, and these spots needs to be revised. That, and that. Starting all the rest of the work seems very reasonable. I have showed you the contour connections, so yeah, keep moving forward with the ones that I crossed out, well, without the ones that I crossed out, and you should be in a good shape. Any other questions that I need to go through? Okay, good. All right, one more. Melanie, you here? Okay. So 129.8, 2.5, 133, 2.6, 131.8, 134. Yeah, I would give the same advice. We need to check if this is, what are these spots? And then keep in mind the 15 feet. And there should not be a 0.5 addition to the entrance elevations for the garage. Okay, so for you, it will start with, again, the driveway. Right now, it seems that your HPS and your LPS, those lengths would lead to acceptable slopes for your center line. So that's good news. You don't necessarily have to get down to this low, but no, it's not wrong to have your LPS here at this point. The HPS being 133, you should be able to drain this one out. You should be able to drain that corner out. And yeah, I will verify the driveway, and then I will move forward with the drafting of the contours. Okay. So did I answer your question about the proper way to find driveway slope by others? Okay. Yes, go find this one out and that one out, but it's mainly this one is critical. This one is lower, right? Yeah, and then you would draw 15 feet line. You move forward to using that and 10% slope to calculate this, 5% slope to calculate that, and that's so much. Right now, the FFE, we need to recalculate that one to see if that one is working. No, so you can use FFE equal to 1, but likely the slope will exceed 10%. You have to verify whether or not your garage FFE equal to 134 would result in your driveway slope exceeding 10%. Right? Yes, to the driveway slope, then you will know, okay, my FFE of the garage can be as high as 134.5. In that case, you can keep your FFE equal to 134. Yeah. All right. Okay, that is all for the reviews of today. Let's see. I'm gonna go walk over to Stuart's and see where he is.